I will never understand why this sort of thing happens. And probably I will never understand it for my entire life. But I just wish that I could point the finger at something that was definitely legitimate when it came to why all these wrestlers are being lost year after year after year. I guess if it wasn't going to be the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, it would have just been somebody else that we would have had to deal with the loss of, and we'd be just talking about the same thing. We're not even past the halfway point of the year, and already we've lost a big name. I was hoping we were going to get through 2015 without losing a big name, and unfortunately that backfired on me. My hopes were led to be false hopes because we've seen so many wrestlers die over the last at least 3 to 5 years. We saw the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 30. We saw Paul Bearer just before WrestleMania 29, and Macho Man Randy Savage at the halfway point of 2011, and this list is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And I really hate how WWE just throw up a little package of the wrestler when they pass away. They don't really go acknowledging them in the way of an Eddie Guerrero or a Chris Benoit. I really hate their philosophy of how you have to be on the active roster to have a tribute show or something to acknowledge your legacy in professional wrestling. It seems like you just have to be on the active roster and you have to be wrestling in the present era of wrestlers to have a full tribute show done for you. But now they have the network, so at least now they can use the network for these tribute shows for these legends. I know they did it for the Macho Man Randy Savage, and I think they threw something up on WWE Network out of respect to the legacy of Dusty Rhodes. Probably they showed the Dusty Rhodes story a number of times on the network. I'm not subscribed to the network, so I don't know what goes down on the network, but I would imagine with how they paid tribute to the Macho Man Randy Savage on the network and his legacy, they did the same thing for Dusty Rhodes. No doubt the Rhodes family and members of it have been commenting on this all throughout social media and for WWE on the .com website, so it's just awesome how many people have something very positive to say about Dusty Rhodes. And that's something else I commend the wrestling business for. Very few people, it's very hard to find something negatively said about Dusty Rhodes. Everybody had something good and positive to say about Dusty Rhodes. Some people had negative stuff to say about people like Andrew Martin and people we have lost over the years like Lance Cade, the smaller wrestlers in the mid-card level of professional wrestling. But when it comes to these legends, it's very hard to find someone who will say something very negative about wrestlers like Dusty Rhodes and the Ultimate Warrior and so many that we've lost over the years. How can you go without recognizing the legacy of Dusty Rhodes and what he left behind, and more importantly, what he gave to the wrestling business? Now, I do want to apologize to everybody listening to this show who hears my voice on my channel. I was meaning to talk about the death of Dusty Rhodes sooner than what I did, but I didn't get around to doing it because there was so much going on in the wrestling business at the same time that Dusty Rhodes had passed away, so I had to get that out of the way before I referenced the death of Dusty Rhodes. Now, I did manage to throw up a column for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke with my thoughts on Dusty Rhodes and how I felt about his passing, and I throw my condolences the way of the Rhodes family. You can find that archive by clicking on column in the top of our navigational bar at the top of our website. It's in the archives there. Jonathan Clarke comments on the death of Dusty Rhodes, because to be honest with you, I am really shaken up and really at a loss for words when it comes to Dusty Rhodes. So I don't think much needs to be said about Dusty. All we need to know and all we need to remember and recall upon for Dusty's career are all the moments he gave us in matches with the likes of Sting, Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rick Rude, all the work he did for the territories on the independent level for companies like TNA Wrestling, WCW, WWE. I mean, he was there for everything, and every critical thing that went down in the wrestling business, Dusty had a hand in, and definitely, God knows, he had a hand with creative in WWE. That's why we got characters like Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes following in the footsteps of his father, the American Dream. And again, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the Cody Rhodes character in light of Dusty Rhodes' loss, because Cody Rhodes is going to come back better and stronger than ever before, and he may try to pattern himself after the American Dream Dusty Rhodes as he throws a little bit of a tribute the way of his father in his wrestling character, which is very different from the American Dream, but also so similar in a lot of ways. Cody Rhodes is just a chip off the old block, in my opinion, just as Dustin is, and definitely he is going to be missed and he is never going to be forgotten. If there ever was a name that's never going to be forgotten in the wrestling business, it's definitely without a doubt going to be Dusty Rhodes, with no questions asked, because all you have to do is just look back at all the moments he gave us as wrestling fans. I mean, it was just amazing how much he gave us and how he never really backed down from any challenge in professional wrestling. If it was to be fought, Dusty Rhodes fought the challenge, and if it was to be accomplished, Dusty Rhodes accomplished the unaccomplishable. And that's amazing. That's an amazing feat to have reached in your career. With millions of people joining me in the loss of Dusty Rhodes, my heart goes out to every single one of you, and especially the diehard fans of old school wrestlers who are very affected by the losses of people like the Ultimate Warrior, Paul Bearer, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and now Dusty Rhodes, who had millions of fans. I know that on Facebook, people have been creating their own tributes to Dusty Rhodes with Facebook fan pages. You've been throwing up your own tribute videos on your YouTube channels, and you've been tweeting something out about it on Twitter. I know all throughout the week of Dusty Rhodes' passing, just a couple of days after his death had been confirmed by WWE.com, wrestlers were being interviewed on .com. People were tweeting about it. People were posting something on their Facebook page out of reference to the death of Dusty Rhodes, and this sort of thing is expected to happen because, when you're a part of the wrestling business, it feels like you're a part of one big family, which there's no getting away from or no getting out of. Once you're in this family and you're in this circle, you're not getting away from it anytime soon or getting out of it anytime soon. So it seems like everybody shares in something big that may happen, some big moment that may occur with someone winning a championship, say for the first time, or the death of a wrestler who had influenced our lives so much over the years, and having to realize, I think the most difficult part about it all is having to realize that these wrestlers are no longer with us, and it's very hard to comprehend why this had to happen, because that question goes without answers. Even though there are autopsies confirming what happened all the time, there are still these questions that go without answers, that we want answers to, that we're never going to get the answers to that we want. And even though with the autopsies confirming the reasons and the logical explanations as to why these sort of things happen and these sort of things occur day in and day out, being posted on websites like Pro Wrestling Torch, PW Insider, ProWrestling.com, and .net, even with so much being confirmed about the death of wrestlers or big critical issues that occur all the time in wrestling, there are still these questions that go without answers. And I don't think we should hold anybody accountable for not getting the answers to these questions. I just think we should accept what's what. And what's what right now is we've lost another big name in the wrestling business, and WWE have paid tribute to him through things like the network and their official website. Although I think there could have been more done for the tribute for Dusty Rhodes, I want to commend WWE for the tremendous job they did in recognizing his death, far more professionally handled than the death of Chris Benoit or Eddie Guerrero was ever handled. And my hat's off to WWE. It's one of the few things that I give WWE credit for, how they handle the deaths of wrestlers and these tributes that they do. Although I feel that the tributes could be more detailed, I want to give WWE credit where credit is definitely due with how they've handled the recent passing of Dusty Rhodes. And I want to throw out my condolences to the Rhodes family again one more time here on this show, because Dusty really had a finger on the business for giving wrestling fans what they wanted. And I think it's safe to say, I think I'm not wrong in saying that Dusty went above and beyond the requirements of a member of creative to give wrestling fans what they wanted to get out of the product. And he gave wrestling fans the most out of the product week in and week out. Whatever he had an influence on, he was able to give wrestling fans what they wanted, and that by far is his greatest accomplishment, and if without a doubt one of the biggest things wrestling fans are going to remember Dusty Rhodes for. I mean, he had a hand in creating some of the phenomenal names that we saw on NXT, especially Sasha Banks, who was mentored basically by Dusty Rhodes. She's another one who my heart goes out to, having to deal with this, because she worked close with Dusty down in Florida, and he was one of the biggest reasons why Sasha got a huge push for the NXT Women's Championship. She's going to eventually be showing up on Monday Night Raw. And again, it all goes back and ties into what Dusty did for her career, as he did for many of the wrestlers on NXT as the general manager of the show. I mean, he was a phenomenal name, and I don't think he's ever going to be forgotten. He was, without a doubt, the truest definition of the American dream, and he was a pioneer of this business. And he got to go into the Hall of Fame. He got to accept his Hall of Fame ring, and his Hall of Fame acceptance speech of his Hall of Fame ring and plaque, I would imagine, has been watched millions of times over on YouTube and has been thrown up as an exclusive piece of footage for the network so many times in the loss of Dusty Rhodes. And I know people, especially independent wrestlers, are joining together with their own little bit of a memorial for Dusty Rhodes. People are remembering Dusty for what he gave to the wrestling business, because he's someone who is never, ever going to be forgotten. And it makes you wonder, what's really going on And although we don't have the answer to what's really going on in the business, all we can do at the end of every single day is wonder and push forward to a profitable future in the wrestling business, because if there ever was an individual who wanted this show to go on, it is definitely Dusty Rhodes. They said about Owen Hart when Owen Hart died back in 1999, in May of that year when he fell from the Raptors, and that tragic accident was the biggest story to be profiled, especially here in Canada. They said that Owen Hart would have wanted the show to go on, and if they said that about Owen Hart, Dusty Rhodes would have wanted millions of more shows to go on, and would have wanted the shows to go on more so than Owen Hart ever wanted them to go on. If there ever was somebody who wanted the wrestling show to go on for what it was worth, Dusty Rhodes was that sort of individual and that sort of man to be a part of the business, and he was definitely deserving of all the legendary tributes, all the legacies that he achieved. And I think that if there ever was someone who wanted something more out of this business, it was without a doubt Dusty Rhodes, for how far he went for wrestling fans in this business. So I think I can get away with saying that if there ever was an individual who wanted the show to go on and persevere through this difficult time, it was Dusty Rhodes, with no questions asked or without a doubt. And that's one of the biggest reasons why he's never ever going to be forgotten, along with how he was the true definition of the real American dream. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, joining with all of you in this very difficult time, the loss of Dusty Rhodes. Again, my heart goes out to every member and every friend of the Rhodes family affected in this very difficult time, this tragic loss. Again, we've lost another big name, joining a list that includes the likes of the Ultimate Warrior Paul Bearer and Macho Man Randy Savage, with Dusty Rhodes now at the top of the list. Where do we go from here? All we have to do is push forward, in my opinion. That's a logical explanation that can be drawn. If you want to draw your own conclusions and play that game, all we have to do is push forward, look forward to profitable futures for the Rhodes family in the way of Dustin and Cody, especially Cody Rhodes, who's really going to break through because of this tragic loss in his family. No doubt it's very difficult for him, but he's definitely going to break through and persevere. And I look forward to big things, especially from Cody Rhodes, if not Dustin / Goldust, Black Rain, whatever you want to call him. The Rhodes family are definitely going to persevere, and that's all we can do is push forward and move on with our lives. With so many of the questions answered, 50% answered, and on the other side of the coin, 50% going without answers. But again, you can only get so many answers to what really goes on behind that proverbial closed door. Who we point the finger at for all these losses that we've seen over the years